burned in the
Clearly
memory.
it doesn't work
You know?
because
We just don't
he's like,
go out
we all
and
had those as
go to
kids, and
or
then we grew
museum
up.
where we stream on our.
Have you ever tried to plug in
know?
a USB? You never get it in the
so
first
much.
try. we didn't, we
very
didn't
cool.
I
learn
have
how to
memories
put
too as a teenager.
same size
and-
things
yeah.
into same
I never
size.
tried to sneak in a trunk though.
Oh, we did. Just somebody said try it. So, I mean, it was,
I thought we could play
the
myself.
movie was fun,
Yeah.
but it was not hurtful.
Right.
Well, guess what?
Are you dead?
I'm dead.
Oh, dang it.
All right, guys, I can hear some giggling and laughing. Open up the trunk. Yeah, they didn't call the cops.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just fun.
Yeah.
You know, today, you probably get the cops called.
Probably.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I had to plug into the extension. Okay.
Sorry about the delay, gentlemen.
We have a thick meeting today,
Look at
so
this.
we're trying.
Look at this. This lady comes to my aid immediately. She wants me
Good
to.
job.
What did you charge my phone the other day?
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Well, I thought I'd charged it Sunday, but apparently I didn't.
Maybe your cord is bad.
It works on one and not on the other.
Wanda, did you have pneumonia, they said? That's nasty.
Just recently?
I don't know. Of course, they moved around so many times it could be in there for several years. But what adult would do that? She doesn't know.
Your microphone's not on.
That's right.
Michelle, are we live? Oh, okay. All right, I'll quit looking at you then to get the high sign. Good evening, everyone. We apologize for the late start, but we want to welcome everyone out to our Planning Commission meeting for Tuesday, August the 13th. We'd like to acknowledge that all of the commissioners are present with us tonight. We'll move to item B, which is public comment. We open this up for the public to make comments regards to the community aside from what's listed on the agenda. I don't know if we have any public representatives that want to discuss at this time, but seeing none, we will move on to presentation and reports. Mr. Cooper, please.
Thank you. I'll just briefly cover what we discussed in the work session. We have a couple of open houses or grand openings scheduled for the next couple of months. One would be Tesla later on this month. We'll send out a date for that. The other will be Chuck E. Cheese. That'll be in September. So those are two projects that we've been waiting, anticipating their arrival. So we're excited for that. We do have one this month for a new business that hasn't really hit the radar, but it's Ichiban Sushi. And that grand opening will be on the 28th. America First is progressing nicely with some of their work up there. They've got a pad site ready, and they're just waiting for further approval. So you'll be seeing some site plan review documents in the next couple of weeks, hopefully for the next meeting. And we don't have any new updates on the river project down here next to the city building. That's it.
Okay. All right, thank you. We'll next move to, on the agenda, item D, consent items, consideration for meeting minutes from July 23rd, 2024 work session and regular meeting. Any comments on those minutes, changes if necessary? If not,
I believe those meeting minutes are correct, so I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the July 23rd, 2024 work session and regular meeting.
we have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion on this? Okay, we'll call for all in favor to approve the minutes.
Yes.
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 Okay, that passes. We'll next move to item E, action items. We have a packet of 3 items to be considered for Ken Goff parking lot site. Located property location of 667 West, 4400 South, Riverdale, Utah, as requested by Right Development and Garf Properties, Riverdale LLC. We have a parking lot site plan approval extension, a conditional use permit, and a forwarding of a recommendation for the final site plan to the City Council. So, Mr. Cooper.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And just one small correction right out of the gate. The first item is a plat extension. The site plan extension is an error. So it is a plat extension that we'll be discussing first. The second, as you mentioned, is a conditional use, and the third is the site plan approval. We'll start with the plat extension because all of the other things are triggered upon that. In the packet and on the screen is the location of the site. I'm sure you're aware of it. It's the home of the old Leslie's Mobile Home Park. It's vacant now. There are some cars actually being stored there. We do have Logan Johnson with us tonight as well from Right Development, and he'll be happy to answer any questions that I won't be able to. This has a long history of getting worked out. There is some property transfers and things that are happening to facilitate both the apartments that are to the west there and also this parking lot. This is the plat that was given a final approval back in August of 2023, and this is the plat that is being requested to be extended in terms of that approval for 6 months. There are no proposed changes to the plat as you see it. It was given final approval by the City Council, as I mentioned, back in August of 2023. When you consider looking at final plat extension requests, really, it's just based on this idea of, did the request come in prior to the 1-year deadline? And if so, then are there things that justify in terms of good cause for the extension? In talking with the development team and with Logan, and he's here to obviously answer any questions in detail, there are a few reasons for the cause of delay, and we're seeing this more and more. This is the second one, and we have a third one tonight. So we are seeing these extension requests a bit more common than I think in the past. There is those complications and the details that are being worked out with adjacent landowners to accommodate land for the apartments in trade for the land for this parking lot. So that's taken some time to get worked out. The guarantees of a final plat being recorded and site plan approval being executed, those have certain things that are associated with them, financial commitments, bonds, expenses, and so developers aren't generally ready to do that until everything, all the ducks are in the row. Land ownership, the building costs are in line, the general contractors have been procured, and so those things take time to get lined up. And in this case, it hasn't happened in the year period since the final plat. And so after talking with Logan and looking at this site and really understanding, I think, the big win here, which is the apartments. And to facilitate the apartments, this site has to be developed for this parking lot. That's really the big light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, in terms of what this site it was intended to become. And so you have a couple of options before you. Option number one is to grant the extension to February 1st of 2025 if you deem that those reasons for the cause of the delay are justifiable. You can make a motion to deny the extension, and that would then put the onus back on the developer to bring back a new plat to be submitted for approval and go through that whole process again. Or you have the option of tabling the matter to a later date if there's information or anything that you think you need that you don't have today. So we'll stop there. I'll let you talk to Logan if you need more clarification on some of the cause for delay, and if not, I'll turn it back to you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Johnson, would you please step forward so that we can ask any questions that we may have for you?
Yeah, thank you.
Introduce yourself and your city of residence, please.
Logan Johnson, Centerville, Utah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions you'd like to ask Mr. Johnson?
I got one just brief. Logan, how comfortable do you feel going forward that every player involved is ready and we won't have a future delay in your game plan?
Quite comfortable. More comfortable now than we were last time I was before the body. It's a little bit of a chicken and egg on this one. The land swap that we're doing with the Garfs, who previously owned the hard corner, they only want to change the land if we can build their parking lot. We're taking that same acreage and putting it next to their other parking lot back there. And so they can only build the parking, they only will give us the land if we can build the parking lot. This site plan approval that's also before you tonight ensures that they'll do that. And so that's a big piece. And our reason for not doing that was partially to get financing lined up, partially Mike leaving and Brandon coming, who's been fantastic. And then just partially on our end, just not wanting to record the plat until sort of the financial guarantees were there. And so we've been talking with the group, and I believe we want to circulate the plat for signatures here next week, assuming this meeting goes on and we receive the recommendations. And so nothing's for sure in real estate, but I'd say we're more confident today than we were a year ago.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? If not, a motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve the Ken Garf parking lot plat approval extension request for a 6-month period to February 1st, 2025 for property located at 667 West, 4400 South in Riverdale, Utah, as requested by Wright Development and Garf Properties Riverdale LLC.
Okay. Second. We have a motion and a second. Michelle, if you would poll the commissioners, please.
Commissioner Spires?
Yes.
Commissioner Nye?
Yes.
Commissioner Herman?
Yes.
Commissioner Henstra?
Yes.
Commissioner Noland?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Polson?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. And then that'll allow us to continue on to items 2 and 3. Mr. Cooper.
Thank you. So moving on now to the conditional use. This is associated with the site plan review. So I'll talk about just the general review parameters of a conditional use, and then I'll move into the site plan discussion. And then before you take action on the site plan, we'll need to come back and do the conditional use first. But it's all kind of together. So in your packet, you have a list of the things that you should review under a conditional use permit, and you're very familiar with these, I'm sure. But just to recap, a conditional use shall be approved if reasonable conditions can be proposed that mitigate any anticipated detrimental effects. So as we look at the review of the site and its proposed uses, we look at any potential or anticipated detrimental effects and how those are being mitigated in the proposal. Is the location necessary or desirable for the type of use that's being proposed? And does it really conform to our goals of the city? And then the last one is if it will not lead to the deterioration of the environment or the ecology. So those are the things that you're being asked to consider as we talk about the site plan now. And you have the same types of findings as you would in a normal decision, a motion to grant the conditional use, a motion to deny, or a motion to table. So we'll come back to this action in just a moment, and I'll move on to the site plan, and then we'll come back to that. So the site is roughly 1.13 acres. It's in your packet. It's on the screen as well. Again, it is part of the land swap that Logan mentioned, and it has been anticipated as this project has moved ahead. There was a rezone that took place some time ago that moved this into a residential / commercial zone. So the land to the west is residential zoned, this land is zoned commercial. And so there was anticipation of this potentially happening based on the land issues that Logan mentioned. As we look at the code review, you can see some of the codes that applies to this type of a site, specifically with the parking and the general plan compliance. I looked at that significantly, and that's really one of the basis of your review here and your consideration is, does it maintain balance between our commercial and residential zones? That's a big consideration in the general plan. Does it optimize land use designations based on opportunities and constraints? And does it buffer less compatible land uses and facilitate compatible land uses? And I'll come back to those. You also look at the land use plan as part of the general plan, and I'm not sure if this was something that happened during the same process of the rezone and some of the things that were going on, but the land use plan actually shows this being all residential, even though it was rezoned to be commercial. Here's some existing photos. So part of the land is actually being used as the storage of vehicles now. This would actually extend to the west a little bit if this is approved tonight. They have a major entrance there now on the east side of the property with an automatic gate that they go in and out of. That's actually to be closed and relocated more to the east, or excuse me, to the west, as the site plan indicates. They do have a fence here now. They are proposing to keep a 6-foot fence around the entire property. And what is an improvement, I think, to the site is that they'll put slats in this fence. And so as you walk the trail, you'll have black slats that will obscure the view into the parking lot. So I think that is an improvement. Here's some views of what the property faces. It does face some mobile homes there, some residential homes. It does, as you know, tuck back into that curve under the viaduct. So it is kind of no man's land there. And even though the trail goes by, it does have kind of a tucked in nature to it. And so as you look at these general plan items, and if it complies to the general plan, optimizing land use designations based on opportunities and constraints, there aren't really very many places for a facility like this or a land use like this. We wouldn't want to use prime real estate to store cars outside of a dealership's environment. So this is a secondary lot to our dealerships that have lots already associated with their business. And so I think it does optimize the land use as it's tucked into this, it's not a dead end street, but it is kind of this dead corner, so to speak. And does it buffer less compatible uses? I think it does by being tucked in there and by us being surrounded by residential and then screened from the trail and the other residential uses. I do think that provides an adequate buffer to mitigate that potential impact. The parking lot size is 44,355 square feet, so it's the bulk of the site. There is a landscape requirement that they've met. It's 20%. They're landscaped up to 22%, all low water use, xeriscape type of landscaping. They've met the grading and drainage requirements of the city. There are 150 stalls, and as I mentioned in the work session, we have a table of uses in our parking that are assigned different numbers of parking stalls that's associated to each use. When a use isn't listed, then the code puts that determination to the council or to the planning commission in terms of what the appropriate number of stalls are. Given that this is a parking lot, they're maximizing the number of stalls that the lot can provide while still providing ingress and egress and circulation. And so that's one thing that the staff did not make a determination of, and it's something that you may want to discuss as whether or not it's appropriate.
All applicable regulations concerning landscaping, though, are met under the current layout with the 150 lots. Is that correct?
Yes. So they have adequate landscaping, adequate drainage, and in fact, one of the things that I appreciate them doing is on the frontage, the road frontage, they've tried to blend some of that landscaping in with the future landscaping that would occur to the west as part of the residential development. So that street will have a nice, consistent form to it as you drive and make the turn. So based on our review of the site plan, we would recommend approval of the proposed site plan, subject to a couple of things. We're still working on the transfer of water. As you know, every development is required to either bring water to the site or to purchase water under the contract that we have with Weaver Basin. This site is just xeriscaping. It has not even an acre-foot of water requirement. So it sounds like the developer is going to choose to purchase water from the city. And so based on tonight's action, we will start working that out via the contracts that we have. That's correct? Yep. So
Okay.
that's our recommendation. Before we take action on the site plan, let's go back to the conditional use now that you kind of understand the site and some of the things that are going into it, and whether or not you feel that there are any anticipated detrimental effects, and if the site has gone far enough to mitigate some of those.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that review. So let's consider then item E2, the conditional use permit. Again, Mr. Johnson, we'll invite you up in case there are any
Yeah.
comments or questions.
In fact, I'll sit unless you address me.
Okay, agreeable.
No, I actually do have a question. Mr. Cooper was referencing the putting slats in the fence.
Yeah.
Is that going to happen all the way around or just by the river?
All the way around. Garf wanted an 8-foot fence. City code doesn't allow us to go 8 feet, so we peeled it back to 6 feet. And the black slats will go 100% perimeter around. I think we're taking down the existing fence that's there because we're going to install a storm drain system to do some detention, which I think right now it just flows over. And so I think it'll really improve how the storm drain's handled in that area. Maybe, trail maintenance, things like that. But yeah, it would go all the way around the property. That was a long way to answer your question.
Yeah,
sorry.
no, that's great. Thank
The
you. I appreciate
residents
it.
will have that same
Yes.
obscured view.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and we thought about that, and there's a small chance when we do the residential project, we may just pull that up and do the white vinyl in its place when the time comes. But as of now, yeah.
But
black
either
slats.
way, it will for sure be obscured,
Obscured.
from the residents.
Yes, that was
Yes.
one of our negotiations with Garf, something we cared about for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I actually had another question for you, just as far as these, like 150 cars,
Yeah.
Potentially on the lot. And what is the traffic going to look like coming to and from? Like, is there going to be cars kind of all day coming in and out of the parking lot?
I think the quantity will be pretty consistent with what it is right now. I don't think that Garf intends on filling and emptying that lot every day. You'll notice some of the stalls are double parked on the two edges. And that's just so Garf could fit one more in, illustrating they're not going to pull those in and out every day because some of them are double parked. It's just a little excess storage for their operations across the street. So if I had to guess, 10 cars a day type of a thing as they're cycling people in and out. Maybe on a big sales day, they're moving a few more out and stuff like that. But for the most part, I think it's overflow for their main lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure with this being a residential neighborhood, and especially when the apartments go on and we've got traffic from the apartments
Right.
coming in and out,
Yeah.
and we've got kids running around playing, that
Yeah.
it's minimal traffic from the
Yeah,
parking
no.
lot.
If I compared this traffic demand to any other commercial use, it's a spit in the bucket for sure. It's just going to be a few cars in and out, I think, compared to 500 cars a day out of the apartment project in and out and stuff like that.
Right.
So yeah,
Okay. Thanks. I appreciate
yeah.
that.
A question, you do not anticipate having any more than 150 cars in there at a time, right?
That's correct. The stall is, as you can see, it'd be really hard to squeeze any more in, but no, that would be the max.
Because we're not putting lines in to make sure that that's all you keep in there, so.
Yeah, we will be painting the lines.
Oh, you're gonna put
Yeah,
that in?
yep. And you'll
Okay.
see there's actually a few painted. They're not landscape islands, but there are a few painted to those rounded edges. But those lines they'll be painted in. Yeah.
When I looked here, it looked like maybe it hadn't been concreted over. You're gonna redo the,
Yes, yeah. So the site right now just has some gravel.
Yeah.
And we're, part of this is we're hoping to get this through so we can beat the asphalt closing date. I think is usually October 15th. And so the hope is that we'll have this paved by October 15th. Yeah, we'll rip up the whole site, extend it, repave it, paint it,
so you
fence
will
it.
have the lines in there, so
Yeah.
that,
That'll
Yeah.
look great.
that'll be good.
Yeah, I think it'll be an improvement as well. Yeah.
Logan, are you going to have any like semi unloading late at night? A lot of activity late at night for the homeowners. The traffic and big semi trucks coming in there and offloading cars and moving cars at 2 or 3 in the morning.
When I chatted with Garf about that, they talked about a lot of their main offloads happen at their dealership. Then they do some registering and checking into the cars, and these ones would just sort of be storage over time. So we don't anticipate any of the semi truck offloading. That I don't want to be held if they did need occasionally to do that. But the anticipation is all the cars here would be driven individually from the Garf dealership.
It's pretty tight there. If you bring a big semi in there,
Yeah.
offloading vehicles and
Yeah.
and the trailers that's already there, the trailer homes, and plus
Yeah.
the new addition
Yeah.
that Celeste was talking about. So activity would be minimal at nighttime as far as noise and
For sure at
heavy
nighttime.
trucks.
Yeah, absolutely. The only time there could be an occasional drop off would be in the day, but I think once Garf's closed, those gates are locked and it'll be quiet. Yeah.
And may I remind the commission that based on your approval of this conditional use permit, you can enact certain conditions that are attached to that approval. So if you feel that it's important to address unloading and loading, especially around certain times of day, then that's a condition that you can place with your approval. But it doesn't sound like it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I don't think so, but if you guys felt the need to, restrict unloading and unloading after business hours or something like that, I think that would be appropriate, and I don't think that we'd
And I
have
would
it.
imagine it would be inconvenient for them to load and unload in that spot anyway.
Yeah,
As
I anticipate
getting
it would
in
happen
and
at
out.
the
There's
dealership.
no way to
Drive all
Yeah.
the way around.
It'd be a
You'd
30
be out on the
point turn.
street. You'd be out
Yeah.
on the street with them big semis. You couldn't make the turn to go in the parking lot. So that's why I'm saying it'd
Even
be
so, it's kind
even
of a dead end
narrower
right
for the
there.
people that lives in the homes right there. It's going to be even tougher for them if you got a lot of truck activity going around and they're trying to get in and out of their homes. That was my concern after hours.
Generally speaking, well, first of all, it's a fairly wide street, so that's good. But generally speaking, loading and unloading of any kind is not appropriate on city streets, especially semi trucks full of cars. That happens here in front of Tony DeVino and some other places, but generally speaking, that's not
Okay.
typically allowed.
I did have one question. The 6-foot fence, because that is a remote area in relation to the location of your dealership. Will it have security,
Cameras?
not cameras, but
Barb
will the
wire.
fence have barbed? I believe the pictures show it now. Will
It currently
continue
does,
to
yeah.
have that?
It currently does. However, this was before Brandon's time. Mike and I did some research into that, and the city code does not allow barbed wire fences. So our current application does not include any barbed wire on that. Garf's aware of that. I think they would have preferred barbed wire, but the code is what the code is, and so I think they're anticipating other security measures to help address that. I think that's part of the reason for the slat fences too, a little bit more.
Obscure.
Yeah, maybe it's harder. If you don't know what you're going to steal, you don't jump the fence. I don't know how the rationale works, but yeah, they're aware of that, and I think they have some plans in place. We're bringing electricity to the site. They'll have some lights on site, and I assume some security systems as well.
Okay.
But yeah, there will not be, and we kind of didn't want the barbed wire facing our project as well. We felt like it maybe created the wrong feel than what we were going for. But yeah,
My concern is there's a lot of homeless people that walk up and down that walkway, that if you don't have security cameras or something in there, those guys can jump that fence in a really fast hurry.
yeah.
And want to make sure that it is secure, that you don't have homeless people in there.
Yeah. Yeah, they're well aware of it. It's something that they deal with currently. And I think, we anticipate if there is an issue, they may come back and talk about some maybe alternative measures. But as of right now, we feel good about the way we're moving forward. Thank you.
And speaking on the lights, I just want to make sure that that's going to be an appropriate level for when we have apartments in there and people don't have these bright lights
Yeah.
in their windows during
Yeah,
the
they're
night.
the down shielded lights is the
Okay.
plan on that. And so the idea is that by property line, it's 0-foot candles
Okay.
is the design. And, we don't mind having a little bit of light over there rather than total darkness. And so, we think a little light's helpful. But yeah, they are those down shielded with 0-foot candle at property line.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Thank you.
And there's not a ton of them.
No, I think there's only 2 poles, if memory serves,
Okay.
that we have in the plan. So, and then there's also power going to the Reagan sign as well. Met with them on site this week, and
Okay.
yeah, a little bit of light there.
All right. Commissioners, any further discussion? not, we would be looking for a motion.
Would we be doing each one separate?
No, we're just doing the consideration for the conditional use permit.
E2.
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve E2 consideration of conditional use permit request for Ken Garf parking lot located at 667 West, 4400 South, Riverdale, Utah, as requested by Wright Development and Garf Properties, Riverdale, LLC.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion that you wanted to include with this, or
Any findings?
any findings? Okay,
I'd just like to note what we talked about, that we feel like that this property is going to be done in a way that it will not adversely affect the apartments coming in and the current housing there, that the lighting is appropriate. It will be fenced in a way that will obscure the view of the parking lot from residents and people passing by it on the trails. And it will have appropriate security measures, and it won't adversely increase the traffic, especially considering the new apartments going in.
thank you. Michelle, would you poll the commissioners, please?
Commissioner Noland,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes?
Commissioner Polson,
Yes.
Commissioner Spires,
Yes.
Commissioner Nye,
Yes.
Commissioner Herman,
Yes.
Commissioner Henstra.
Yes.
The motion passes, which leads us next to, excuse me, item E3, consideration of forwarding a recommendation to the City Council for the final site plan for the Ken Garf parking lot improvements for the property previously noted, 667 West, 4400 South, Riverdale, as requested by Wright Development and Garf Properties, Riverdale LLC. Do we have any further discussion on what has been already presented? If not, then we could move for a motion for that consideration, please.
I'd make a motion that we forward to the city council a positive recommendation for the final site plan approval for Ken Garf parking lot improvements for property located at 667 West, 4400 South, Riverdale, Utah, as requested by Wright Development and Garf Properties, Riverdale, LLC.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we hear a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Michelle, would you poll the commissioners, please?
Commissioner Herman,
Yes.
Commissioner Henstra,
Yes.
Commissioner Noland,
Yes.
Commissioner Spires,
Yes.
Commissioner Nye,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes?
Commissioner Polson.
Yes.
Again, the motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good luck.
Next, we have item E4, consideration for Coleman View Estate subdivision plat approval extension requested for a 6-month period to February 15th, 2025. Coleman View Estates PRUD subdivision located approximately 5368 South, 1050 West, Riverdale, Utah, as requested by Goldcrest Homes, LLC. Mr. Cooper.
Okay, thank you. I have some slides for this as well. That'll give you some reference. And while we pull those up, I'll introduce Thaddeus Falls. He's with Goldcrest Homes, the developer of the project. And I'm sure he'll be able to shed some light on our previous discussion. So let me talk about what's before you tonight, and then we can discuss, we can continue the discussion that we had in the work session regarding the nature of the extension. So you're all aware of the site there. This is the old Motorview site that has been sold to Goldcrest Homes and is being developed into 68 new homes. That subdivision plat was granted final approval by the City Council on August 15th of 2023. And it is a phased project. So even though it is one single plat, it was approved as 3 phases. And so therefore, each phase can be recorded altogether or individually as those phases are complete. Our code does say that those phases are required to be completed in sequence, and that's what Goldcrest Homes is doing. They have a desire to actually record plats phase 1 and 2 here quickly, hence the reason, part of the reason why we're here tonight. As I mentioned in our other topic under a plat extension, there are a number of things that you would want to look at in terms of the extension, and the biggest of those being the good cause justification for such a plat extension. And after talking with Thaddeum and his team, there's been a number of things that have led to the delay in recording the final plat. There obviously has been a dramatic increase in cost associated with developing, and so that has played into the delay and the request tonight. That goes into basic construction materials, that goes into financing. All of those costs have risen. There have been minor design changes to the development agreement, which was approved in previous months, and there has been a few things that we've worked out with the water shares that have been transferred. So all of those contract negotiations and financial obligations have taken time to get through and have caused a delay in their construction start, which then causes a delay in the actual plat recording. They're well on their way now, and so this plat extension, we feel does have a good cause in terms of being granted an extension. So let's talk about the nature of the plat. We pulled Thaddeum out in the hall just a moment ago. The question is related to the actual final plat itself. In the PRUD code, this has a PRUD overlay. In that code, it requires that any clubhouses or amenities be built in the first phase. So obviously we're looking at a plat that does not have amenities shown in it in the first phase, and indeed the plan is to build those approved amenities in the third phase. And you can ask Thaddeum more specific questions, but what I understand, this precedes my time here, but what I understand is that the development agreement that was approved and amended actually provides for bonding of those third phase amenities that would essentially guarantee their development financially in the event that something happens with the construction timeline. And so that bond has not been paid yet to us. It was something that in our negotiations and our discussions about all the financial guarantees that are required on this project has not been included. And so given the fact that the extension for the plat, or excuse me, the request for the plat extension did arrive to us prior to the 1-year deadline, we feel that it is eligible for consideration by the commission, even though you might choose to table it tonight so that the city and the developer could work out the details of that financial guarantee for those third phase improvements. Again, that bond or that financial guarantee has not been paid. It is a part of the development agreement, and so we just need some time to work that out. Thaddeum, would you want to add anything to that?
Good evening, everybody. I'm excited to be here before the commission. I'll introduce myself, Thaddeum Falls from Goldcrest Homes. I reside in Orem, if that's needed for record.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. I'd also like to just take a second to thank Brandon Cooper for all of his help facilitating this process for us to get here. He did step into the place of Mike, who was a valuable asset to the city, and I believe Brandon's bringing more value to the table as well. He's been very adaptive and forward-thinking and has made this process a lot more seamless than what it could have been. So thank you, Brandon. I'd love to answer any questions that you guys do have prior to. I'll give a brief description of what happened with us and Mike Eggett at the time when we were working through the development agreement. We did say that we would post a bond for the amenities for phase 3, seeing that they're all tucked into the back. Our plan, seeing that this is such a large development, 68 units, it'd be very hard for one builder to step in and knock all of these out in a timely manner to get those amenities in all 68 homes built up within one phase. We've structured it so that the first phase and second phase could be proofs of concept to help us really determine valuations, price point, and target audience to make sure that everything absorbed properly and would help the project go a little more seamless. However, while working through all of our bonding items, the amount of money that we suggested we would bond for these amenities has been presented in previous discussions. We were just working through, as Brandon said, water items, infrastructure bonding, making sure all systems were complete and functional so that the improvements would be installed in the most efficient and best way for the city's safety and for the development itself. I think this was just a little item that we accidentally overlooked, but we are more than happy to put a number to that and work with the city to put up a bond of some typing for that to be put in place to guarantee their installment in phase 3.
Okay, thank you. Is that, has the amount been discussed? Was that originally in the amendment?
I'm looking at the development agreement that was part of some of the action taken in previous meetings. I don't see it here. I don't have the amended development agreement. Do you recall if those numbers, well, the actual amount of the bond is not in the development agreement at all.
Right.
Okay.
It just specifies that a bond would be,
For the total, usually the language is total cost of the improvements.
okay.
So what the
Correct.
amenities will be.
Okay.
All improvements, and we actually delineated the amenities from the actual infrastructure, and that should be included in our engineer estimate. I don't have that on me right now, but it has been reviewed by city engineer and staff and found acceptable. So for the pickleball, sports courts, pavilions, there's a dog area. We did allocate a specific dollar amount to those, what we anticipated those costs to be at the time of their installment, and it was accepted. So going back to that number should be really easy to come up with, and we'd be more than happy to post some type of bonding mechanism in place to ensure that we envision those going in. We're not trying to get around that. I think with the timing and the delays, financially speaking, it's been a difficult year for builders, or the past couple years have been difficult for builders all throughout Utah. So we've had to work through some items. That's why I'd like to thank Brandon, because he's been very helpful in getting us to this point, and we're ready to work through that item as well. So to speak to the improvements, I can imagine you guys have driven past the site. It's really starting to take shape, and we tried to front load all of the improvement connections on 1050 West, water, sewer, storm drain. We've taken all of those into consideration and have done those now so that the road won't be stopped for school time now that UMA is going to be kicking up. We're trying to kind of minimize our presence there in the road and traffic delays so that no real blockages or anything is held up, just so you guys are aware.
We appreciate that.
So if you see large price increases from what you began to today, is it still going to be completed as promised for the future homeowners on all the different amenities?
Yeah.
If you have a major increase in price, they're still in their mind saying, I'm buying a house with all these amenities with it. That's still going to be a go.
Yeah, correct. All the amenities that we've committed to, although pricing for materials and labor has gone up, I think for the amenities that we're looking at, pavilions, pickleball courts, those types of things, I've had conversations within the last 6 months with contractors that do install that type of product, and I have really recent bids that could back up the pricing, and we feel very comfortable that for the HOA amenities, everything that's been promised will be delivered.
Thank you.
And that would be the purpose
For the
of
bond?
the bond,
Of the
would be
bond.
that the city would have that money on hand
Correct.
to ensure that it is done.
Back up.
And part of
correctly.
our bonding was for our detention pond, which will also serve as somewhat of a basis of the amenities, and we've covered the installment and improvements that are required to make the detention pond serve or function properly, which has landscaping elements that have also been bonded for. So there's probably a little bit that we have bonded for. There's just the pavilion, sports courts, those types of items that sincerely I just overlooked. I think we've been working through bigger obstacles than just those. So
We appreciate your honesty.
I apologize. Any other questions? More than happy to speak to our schedule. We plan to record the plat for phase 1 here in the beginning of September. I've been working with Brandon to line that up. All of phase 2 sewers installed. Phase 1 is being worked on right now. We're, as well as the Wright Development Group, we're trying to hit that October 15th asphalt cutoff so that we could have right-of-way, asphalt, sidewalk, everything, improvements installed so that we can start building homes hopefully before the end of the year. That's our goal.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Cooper, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Can we attach stipulations with this approval? We could table it pending review and acceptance of whatever bonding, additional bonding to address the amenities that haven't been attended to previously, or can we make that as a stipulation with the approval if we were to approve it? Does that make sense?
There's nothing in the code that gives any additional decision-making to the commission outside of just the extension. So I think if you are interested in making sure that the bond is in place as was approved by the council in the development agreement prior to you granting an extension, then the tabling might be the best way to do it.
Okay.
And I would recommend that you table to a date certain so that it gives a deadline for both the city and the developer to work towards providing that. And then when we come back to that time, then we can either say it happened or it didn't happen, and then you can take action accordingly.
Would 2 weeks be long enough for that to happen?
I think we could definitely accommodate.
Because that'll be the next time that we meet, will be
That
in
would be
2
the next time
weeks.
that we would meet, and that would hopefully accommodate you for the 1st of September for recording that.
I'll come to the mic to make it official. Yeah, I feel comfortable in our abilities to be able to come to an agreement on a specific bond amount within a 2-week time frame period, whether it's through tabling and or a conditional approval set upon us coming to the agreement on those terms. We'd be open to either.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Again, I want to thank you for your honesty about the amenities and being transparent.
Of course, we try to be. The last thing I have to my name is my word, and we've been very, very excited and eager to build homes here. And the bigger hills kind of took precedence over that smaller item. Although not small, we're excited to have a beautiful subdivision that has great amenities for the future families or residents of Riverdale City to enjoy. It was overlooked, and I apologize.
No problem. Thank you.
Commissioners, any further discussion on this?
I feel it wise to table to make sure that that bond is put in place and the amenities are secured. And sounds like we're pretty confident in that being able to be accomplished by the 27th, which would mean that Goldcrest Homes could continue to move forward with their plans, and we would also ensure that the stipulations on the city side are being met for the residents.
So is that your motion?
No, I was discussing, as long as
Okay.
everyone's on the same page, but I can make a motion.
I'm with
I'm-
Celeste on this.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I am-
Celeste.
All right. In that case, I would like to make a motion to table the consideration of Coleman View Estates subdivision plat approval extension request for a 6-month period to February 15th, 2025. Coleman View Estates, PRUD subdivision located at approximately 5368 South, 1050 West, Riverdale, Utah, as requested by Goldcrest Homes LLC. And the reason we're tabling is to ensure that we have a bond in place to ensure that the amenities are included in phase 3, because our zoning requires that they normally be completed in phase 1. So this amendment to the plan originally provides for the the bond to be completed. And so if we can get the numbers on that and get the bond in place, then we can continue with our next meeting on August 27th, where we can untable this item and move things forward.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Michelle, would you poll the commissioners, please?
Commissioner Polson,
Yes.
Commissioner Herman,
Yes?
Commissioner Nye,
Yes.
Commissioner Henstra,
Yes.
Commissioner Noland,
Yes.
Commissioner Spires,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes. Okay, the motion passes. We will table this until our next meeting on the 27th. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you in 2 weeks.
All right, next we have item E5, discussion regarding proposed amendments to Title 10, Chapter 25, Development in All Zones, and various other Title 10 chapters affected by such amendments, and then this second to that would be the consideration to set a public hearing regarding the proposed amendments to Title 10, Chapter 25, Development of All Zones, and various other Title 10 chapters affected by such amendments. Mr. Cooper.
Thank you. So as you recall, we proposed some changes to the commission bylaws, which adjusted the process for how you all review and approve site plans. And the bulk of that change was to eliminate the preliminary site plan, and this is only related to site plans, not subdivisions. But the bylaws eliminated the process of approving a preliminary site plan and only looked at the final site plan. And so that has code implications. And so in your packet tonight for your review and consideration is where the bulk of those changes would happen. It's largely in 1025 where it describes the process of site plan approval, but there are some various mentions of that process in other zones. And so the revisions that are in your packets seek to clean up some of those and to implement that new process to be consistent with your bylaws. So there's really no presentation about that other than just being available to answer any questions that you might have after reading those redlined sections and then talking about setting a public hearing.
Okay. Commissioners, this is an important part of what we do, so what discussion do you have regarding these amendments?
We had a pretty in-depth discussion about this a few weeks ago. So I have no other concerns or anything to contribute right at this time, other than what we've discussed prior.
Okay, thank you. Well, seeing no other discussions to be presented at this time, we would be open for a motion regarding a public hearing.
I make a motion that we set a date for a public hearing for the revisions to 1025 and bylaws that are that might be associated with those, and that date would be 22nd, August 27th of 2025.
24.
24.
Yep, 24. Thank you.
Don't move a year.
Years go by too fast.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? None. Michelle, would you poll the commissioners?
Commissioner Spires,
Yes.
Commissioner Nye,
Yes.
Commissioner Herman,
Yes.
Commissioner Henstra,
Yes.
Commissioner Noland,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes?
Commissioner Polson.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. We will have a public hearing set for August 27th to have this added to our code. Next, item 6, consideration to approve proposed amendments to Planning Commission bylaws and rules of ethical conduct. Mr. Cooper.
Thank
one
you.
more time.
So this is action related to what we discussed previously. So there was discussion about the bylaws and the update to the site plan process. And so for your consideration, we've proposed changes to that. And tonight's action would be to actually take, to formally amend the bylaws. And so I'm happy to answer any questions. They're the same changes that we discussed just a moment ago, and as you have mentioned, we've discussed at length.
Okay, commissioners, any discussion on this proposed change? Talkative group tonight, aren't we?
I'd like to go ahead and approve the motion to approve the proposed amendments to the Planning Commission bylaws and rules of ethical conduct. I feel like we hashed that out very thoroughly at our last meeting and understand the idea of moving to just a final site plan and streamlining the process.
I agree.
So
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion?
Chair, if I may ask just one question.
Sure.
At the risk of opening up a bigger conversation, tonight was an example of that streamlined process where you saw for the first time a final site plan for your approval. Is that a process that is working for you? Do you feel like you're getting enough information to make a decision on a final site plan? Is this a conversation for another time? Those are my questions.
No comment.
My comment would be, I like the way that it's formatted because it's addressing who's seen what and what has been addressed, and that it's been vetted, it's gone back and forth, and that we have recommendations. So I'm in favor of it.
And the final site plan you're referring to is which one? Both the subdivision and the GARF?
it would be for Ken Garf.
Just the Ken Garf.
Ken Garf.
The reference I made to
Yes.
tonight was
Yeah.
just the Ken Garf site plan.
So I felt like we had adequate information, and I liked it too that all the I's were already dotted and the T's were already crossed before they came. And so it was a very simple process for.
It seemed like before when, and I love Mike. He was awesome with what he did, but we were seeing that they had to have bicycle grates and that they had to have this, and there were yellow lines of all the things that needed to be taken care of. And I have full faith and confidence in staff that they're reviewing and that they're complying to all these ordinances and expectations, that it's making it far simpler. We're seeing that, yes, it's been reviewed and taken care of, and any questions that have been addressed, there's been a meeting of the minds on the other side, and that's already been resolved. So, I mean, case in point, you had that one item on page 34 of the packet that said that we had to that we were able to determine because there wasn't something specific in code that said how many spaces were acceptable, but that was something for us to make that determination on. And so that was all helpful. I appreciate what you've done.
Well, I appreciate the feedback because the time that we save by only taking one step with the site plan is time that I hope to replace with a more robust conversation or conversations about long-term planning and other things that affect the future of our city. With a limited planning staff, just me, we essentially all become the planners of the city. And so I'm anxious to crack open our general plan and start looking at its effectiveness and the implementation of what it calls for with some of the process time that we get back. So that's kind of the strategy. Making it easier for our customers obviously is a big thing because now they're having more reliability and clarity, but then also to have time that we can spend together actually planning the city as well as administering land use decisions.
I think it's a better use of our time. So
And that's both are appropriate, land use decisions, but also land planning is a big part of what we should be doing.
Can I interrupt you guys for a second? We have a motion on the table and need to vote.
yes, and we need to.
Just discussing. Sorry.
Thank you for for reining
Do
us back
comments
in.
after.
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. And hopefully we haven't just forgotten what it was.
It was to approve the
So Michelle, will you run it past us and for a vote, please?
Commissioner Nye,
Yes.
Commissioner Spires,
Yes.
Commissioner Herman,
Yes.
Commissioner Polson,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Henstra,
Yes.
Commissioner Nolan.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion
may speak.
passes.
That was her hint to be quiet.
Keeping track of that
And I
for
think
us.
sometimes we get so serious in these meetings. We want to be serious.
I'd just like to say, Brandon, appreciate your openness and honesty and transparency in what you tell us, because we rely a lot, a big part of our decisions is coming from the honesty and openness and transparency. And that means a lot to me, to help make a decision. So thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you. That means a lot to me. We're just building our relationship together in that trust, so I hope to never break your trust. And I, as what was evidenced tonight, I don't have the historical context of some of these decisions, so I'm at a disadvantage. So I appreciate the patience that you grant me on that.
I was grateful that, what was his name? Mr. Falls had that data.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware that we could have that have it bonded so that it would take place. And that's, to me, that's great information moving forward. That if we come up against that again in the future, where it's phase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, that we have that as an option to have that bonded so that we can move forward with these projects.
It's essential for home buyers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And is that something that needs to be changed, like in the code, or something that we can just implement?
It's a really good question and a good point, and I think it's a larger topic. And essentially, we have the requirements of the code, and then we have development agreements. And development agreements are solely for the purpose of making deals. I wouldn't say deals, but creating rules that either augment or supersede the code. In this case is a perfect example. There was a code that required one thing. The development wasn't able to meet that, and so through a contractual agreement, the city and the developer were able to make a separate arrangement, which still requires legislative approval by the council. So really, that kind of comes back to this idea of the Planning Commission needing to be in the loop with the administrative process all the way to the end, because if there are development agreement terms and conditions that are being put in place after you all take action on something that supersede either what you propose, recommended for approval, or what the code otherwise says, then that's an important thing for you to know about after the fact.
Amen.
So I'll figure
and-
out how to fix that.
And I don't know for sure,
That would
but
make tonight a lot
once
easier.
you
Would've
brought
been
up
that.
the development agreement and the bond, there were some memory lights that went on in my head that, vaguely I remembered something about that. So I think that we did know about that maybe before our approval, but I can't remember for sure. I can't answer that question for sure, but
Better memory than I do.
but it does seem vaguely familiar that something was said.
I don't remember that either.
And maybe to your point, Commissioner, we implement the development agreement draft as part of your consideration for recommending approval. So you see that in draft form at least when
Yeah.
you recommend preliminary plat or or whatever it might be, so that you at least have a chance of knowing what happens at the end.
Yeah, I think that would be fitting and appreciated.
I agree.
that answer your question there too? What your concern was about being open and transparent
Somewhat.
somewhat?
I just have one question for you. So we used to have in our packets comments from various city staff, such as the fire chief and the police chief. And with this new format, is this something that once you bring it to us, all of those have already been addressed? Or is it something where we could just have like a little snippet from each of them saying, yes, I've checked this off. Yes, everything's good on my end, just so that we're certain that all of the boxes have been checked as far as city staff go?
So there's two documents that you receive, a transmittal, which is basically just a letter from me and you saying, here's what we're going to talk about. The staff report is the second document that has all of that. And so attached to the staff report is a corrections report that includes all the staff comments in all of the reviews that are conducted on the site plan.
Yeah, I just missed that in this last one.
It would be attached to the end of the site plan. Or excuse me, end of the staff report.
140 pages.
I know, I'm sorry.
Right?
We've only got
Like, I really thought I read through it, but maybe I just missed it in there.
But yes, going forward,
I didn't see it.
I didn't see it
I'm
either.
with
And that's,
Celeste.
it's important that I see it. I mean, to me, it's important that I see it. You say it's all done, but then when we have to talk to him, I might bring up an issue that has already been addressed and completed. And so then I look stupid, but asking him a question that's already been resolved. So I need to know that these issues have been resolved, and I don't need to ask them.
right. So maybe what we can do is, instead of just attaching the corrections report, which includes all those comments back and forth and the corrections that have been made, instead of just attaching it to the staff report, if Michelle is willing to, maybe we can provide a hyperlink to that corrections report so that you don't have to dig through the pile of papers to get
Might
to it.
help.
Is that okay, Michelle?
Whatever you want. Okay.
Yeah. And that way you just click on it, it brings up all of those review comments that you're used to seeing, and then you can see what has been asked.
That would be great. I think it would just help us feel better as we're passing something on, just to make sure
Yep.
that we know everything has been covered.
Okay, we'll make it easy to get to.
Perfect. We like easy. Thank you.
I have a couple questions, though. We've approved a lot of buildings to be built, apartments, and I don't know, when people keep saying, what are you going to do with this? What's happening here? I mean, like, okay, the trailer court, now that piece of property that used to belong to Ken Garf, they've switched it. Has it all been taken care of? That piece of property was actually commercial, now it's going to be residential. Has that been taken care of?
Mm-hmm.
And when are they going to start those apartments in that area?
I've been asking that question since I got here. This was a good step towards them being able to start because they couldn't get ownership of the land where the apartments are intended to be built on, that corner piece, until they got this site plan approval. They can now swap the property and move forward. So this was a major milestone to getting to the apartments. They still weren't able to give me a start date, but as you heard from Logan tonight, they're moving forward.
But so that piece of property really is now,
It was kind of a linchpin
Yeah.
to make this
Okay.
happen.
and right across the street was also some apartments that were supposed to be built.
Yeah, right on the corner between.
Right on the corner.
It's all part of the whole,
Yep, that's
whole
all part of it.
developments.
Yeah, so what is that happening? What's going on there?
It's all part of the same.
Because that
I
was,
don't think they've submitted a
It
site
isn't a
plan for
phase
that
one,
area,
phase
have they?
two. It's Phase
that
done.
was approved long before
Go
the
check.
trailer court, though.
They were two separate things, and then
Then they
one guy
combined-
bought the other, and they combined it all
combined
into
them,
one.
right?
So they did.
Yeah,
okay,
Yeah, so the
that-
one that I can't remember his name.
And the
Brad
site
Brown
and the
was
site
doing.
plan for that corner probably has expired by now.
Yeah,
Probably.
Yeah, so
That's been-
we'll
around that
I'm
same
sure
time.
we'll have to submit a new site plan for that.
'cause that's been a long time ago that they put that in.
Yeah.
You're right.
Okay.
I'll check on that.
And then the one that we extended over there by the Hummer dealership, that piece of property there.
Mm-hmm.
What are they doing with that?
So they have an application in for a building permit. We're
Okay.
doing the building plan reviews right now.
That's great.
For the townhomes.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that last meeting or the meeting before? You might not have been
Last
here.
meeting.
I
You
wasn't
missed
here.
one of
You
the
were
meetings.
sick.
I missed, okay.
How about the old R.C. Woolley building? Any activity there? Nothing there.
No. We're working on a few things, but no.
And what about the Chuck E. Cheese? Are they still planning on going in?
Uh-huh.
Well, did
Yeah, I
you
mentioned
hear
in
that?
our work session that we have a
Opening.
grand opening in September.
In September. All right.
And I had something pop up on my calendar that I had put as a reminder. And I don't know whether you've been able to address it with everything else that's been going on, but you were talking about a treatment facility ordinance. Are we anywhere close on that, or?
I'm glad you brought it up. We did do some searching to see if we can find some precedent ordinance that might be something we can drop in quickly. We haven't made much progress on that,
Okay.
to be honest. There are some other pending ordinances that we're looking at that would actually bypass the commission and go straight to the council. Under state law, you can enact temporary zoning ordinance for 180 days. So we're looking to do that for short-term rentals.
So which would be Airbnb?
Anything under 30 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll just reboot that and I'll ask again in
Thank you.
few months,
It is
so.
important. And now that I say that regarding temporary zoning ordinances, it might be something we would want to do with that as well. In fact, I'm glad you brought that up. We'll do both.
Okay, sweet.
Can we add that? Is that something we can add to our next meeting?
As
Will we be
follow-up?
able to?
Yeah.
about
Again,
it?
they don't come through the commission because they are temporary, but it's something we can talk about for sure.
Right.
Now, we were going to have you add some, is what you're talking about, add something to the plan where we have those boys' homes, not
Well,
to.
that's treatment
The
facility.
treatment facility. So that is going to be involved with, we're going to add that to our code?
Right, and so after that meeting, Michelle and I did quite a bit of work to look at what types of things are already out there that are in compliance to state law that we could look at that might be applicable to our situation. And unfortunately, we didn't take that clear to the end. But now that we're talking about it, we are putting forward to the city council next week what's called a temporary or a pending ordinance that essentially would restrict short-term rentals for 180 days while we create together.
Okay.
We come back and create a long-term ordinance, a permanent ordinance around those uses. We can do that same thing for rehabilitation centers. We can't restrict them, but we can use some language that regulates them better than what they are now, and for 180 days until we have time to actually craft that language. So that puts us on the clock for both short-term rentals and rehabilitation.
Basically 6 months.
So is there any other cities that have that in there?
Rehabilitation codes?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, a lot of them.
Layton's got it, I know.
And they've written, can we look, have you looked at theirs to see how theirs are written?
Yes, that's what we did. That's really all that we did after discussing it. And after it became a kind of the crisis, we started looking at other cities, and then we just didn't follow through. I didn't follow through.
So do they have these kind of facilities in their area?
Oh, yeah, these are all over.
Yeah. Paige works at one in Layton,
Okay.
my daughter.
Well, but we can restrict it to certain extents, right? Can you?
You can't restrict them.
You can't restrict them, you can regulate them.
Regulate
And right
them.
now, we do neither.
Okay.
So the work that we'll do would be in the form of regulation, both for short-term rentals and for rehabilitation centers. And so that'll give us something to do for the next 6 months.
As if you had nothing else, okay?
We love that.
Now, the other question is, back over here, supposed to be putting some homes in, that was recommended at one time, back over here.
Back
Side-
down here, you mean?
Yeah.
Riverside
down here?
District, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, that way, yeah, that way, not that way,
Across
that
from
way.
Tony DeVino there.
So where are we at on that? Is that just a dead issue right now?
So I mentioned that in the work session. I called that the Bach Homes development.
They call it a what?
Bach Homes.
Why is it called that?
B-A-C-H, like Johann Sebastian.
Because Bach Homes is the owner of the land.
Okay.
They are under development agreement with the city. And in one of our training sessions, I had mentioned to all of you this idea of a Stringtown district.
Yeah.
Is that
Right.
ring a bell? So that's part of that. So I've asked Bach Homes to put their current development plans on ice right now so that we can think about this larger development opportunity that encompasses their land as well as tons of acres around it. We've solicited some other development partners that could act as a master developer that have the financial ability to do things like bridge infrastructure and water lines and parks and things like that. So we're trying to put a coalition of really cool people together to attack a larger problem and just instead of just saying, Bach, you own 70 acres, go build something.
Can I follow up on that? I can't remember when it was, but we briefly talked about some kind of a zoning, creating a new zoning or ordinance or something that would allow for, in this Stringtown district, to have a stipulation for like local shops only. Is that something that we can work on as part of this? Add it to one of our next agendas?
So that's generally in a mixed use zone, and we do have a mixed use zone designation, but the actual language of the mixed use zone isn't really adequate, I don't think. So yes, as we go through the development of Stringtown, those two things will need to happen simultaneously as we look at how to do the land planning and the architectural layout of Stringtown. It's automatically going to dictate what zoning is applied over it. So yes, that'll be a fun process. I haven't gotten the team of cool people together yet to start that process, but as soon as we do, then we'll get into the detail work.
If you put together a group that includes citizens, I'd be interested to be on that group, by the way. When you get to that point.
Yeah, I think there's going to need to be a lot of public feedback because part of Stringtown, the idea of Stringtown is to create amenity space for the public. So I think you can wear two hats.
I would be very interested.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Again, thank you for all your work.
It's a 2-hour meeting. That's the longest we've ever had, isn't it?
A lot for us.
Yeah.
What he was talking about.